My name is Sophia, and at 27, I'm facing a difficult period in my life. A few years have passed since the loss of my father, and my older brother, Mark, who is 12 years my senior, left our home to start his own life with his spouse. Now, it's just my mother and me. Truthfully, cohabitating with her has been challenging. Once I began earning, she resigned from her part-time job, adopting a more sedentary lifestyle, while increasingly treating me as if I were a servant at her beck and call, with demands such as, "Sophia, isn't dinner ready yet?" or "I've run out of money this month, give me an extra $300. These requests seem to be never-ending. While the thought of moving out to avoid this misery has crossed my mind multiple times, the fact remains that she is the only family I have left after my father's demise. She raised both me and Mark single-handedly, who now resides a significant distance away with his wife, Amanda. Support from Amanda is not forthcoming, as she has expressly stated her unwillingness to cohabit with my mother amidst these challenging circumstances. Despite my unhappiness, the thought of abandoning her has never crossed my mind, for I am her daughter. Yet, I am also a human being, and there are limits to what I can endure, regardless of the fact that she is my biological mother. Just today, I found myself inadvertently raising my voice at her after noticing some money missing from my wallet, to which I exclaimed, "Hey Mom, is some money from my wallet missing because you took it again?" I blurted out, shocked by my own accusation. What a terrible thing to say. "I just needed some clothes, so I borrowed it for a while," she retorted. Borrowed? You've never once reimbursed me for the money I've lent you. Please, stop taking it without asking. Do you even realize who you should be thankful to for your upbringing? It's all thanks to me, she snapped back. I understand I owe you, Mom, but this isn't the right way to repay the favor. Now that I'm financially independent, it's only natural that I take care of myself. Don't make a fuss over just a few $100s. This kind of interaction occurs every time I voice my concerns to my mother, with her typical response being, "I'm the one who raised you," or "Do you realize who you have to thank for your upbringing?" leaving me often speechless. I acknowledge that my mother has made significant sacrifices to raise me, which is why arguing with her feels so difficult. In all honesty, I earn a decent salary, and even if I were to give my mother $2,000 every month, it wouldn't greatly affect my lifestyle. However, I've always believed that I shouldn't allow my mother to do whatever she pleases indefinitely. Then, one day, after returning from work, for some reason, Mark and Amanda were there. The last time I encountered them was at my father's funeral, and since then, our communication had ceased. "Hey Sophia, it's been quite some time. You still carry that somber vibe, don't you?" Mark noted, his lack of sensitivity reminiscent of our childhood days when he consistently belittled and ridiculed me. "Why are you here, Mark? Is there a specific reason you've come to visit what used to be our parents' home?" I asked. He responded nonchalantly, "Well, after Dad's passing, we dismantled our family home. It's important to remember that I'm the one leasing this apartment now. Try not to be so possessive, it's been a long time since our family was together." As this exchange unfolded, Amanda interjected, "Sophia, you're as uptight as ever. With that demeanor, it's unlikely you'll ever marry." Her words, devoid of any remorse, echoed Mark's insensitivity. This only intensified my aversion to both of them, prompting me to seclude myself in my room after dining solo. My mother, overjoyed by Mark's presence, engaged in lively conversation with him, often at my expense, it seemed. From that point, Mark and Amanda began visiting my apartment with unsettling frequency, behaving as if it were their own space. "Hey Mark, what's the idea here? You do realize this is my place, right?" I finally asserted. "What about your employment? Your intrusion is unwelcome. My presence here is out of concern for Mom, aiming to see her more often," he countered, his response laced with dismissal. "That's none of your concern," Mark added curtly. "By the way, I'm famished. Prepare something quickly." His entitlement was baffling. "This is my residence, isn't it? Why do they act as though they own it? I pondered. I'm craving a delicious cake, Sophia. Purchase one for me, Amanda demanded, with even my mother, freshly home from work, echoing, indeed, you're available today, aren't you? Go fetch it for us, you lazy girl. Despite Amanda's previous aversion to my mother, they seemed to have found common ground. Mark, carrying himself as the elder son, and by extension, Amanda as his spouse, felt it was their duty to oversee my mother's well-being. Their behavior was indicative of an underlying plan, the nature of which was yet unclear but undoubtedly ominous. Days went by, and then, the true intent behind Mark and Amanda's actions was revealed. Sophia, I've reached my breaking point with our cohabitation. I've decided to depart and live with Mark and Amanda, my mother declared abruptly. What do you mean? You're choosing to live with Mark and Amanda? My mother's unexpected declaration left me so taken aback that I inadvertently echoed her words, puzzled by the sudden desire of the couple, who had previously expressed strong aversion to cohabitating with my mother, to now share a living space with her. What could possibly be unfolding? At that moment, Mark and Amanda arrived, poorly timed. Mark, what's happening? You've never made an effort to connect with us before, and you've been adamant about not wanting to live with Mom, right? What's changed? I inquired, seeking clarity. Mark, with a tone of condescension, replied, isn't it the natural responsibility of the eldest son to care for his mother? His response implied a critique of my inability to live harmoniously with our mother. That's not the issue, I clarified, but you're saying it's now acceptable for Mom to stay with you? His affirmation struck me as odd, especially since Amanda, who had previously opposed the idea of them living together, now seemed supportive of the arrangement. Why this sudden change in stance? I asked, frustrated by their inconsistency. Regardless, Mom has decided to move in with us, and your presence is no longer required, Mark dismissed me coldly. Wait, leave? After all the care I've devoted to Mom, you're asking me to leave? I couldn't hide my revulsion towards Mark's arrogant demands. Despite everything, it was evident that Mark and Amanda were plotting something sinister. Though my mother often spoke harshly, she remained my only valued family member, and I had no intention of becoming embroiled in future conflicts. Confronting my mother, I pressed, Mom, surely you see there's something amiss? After all, Mark and his wife have suddenly shown interest in us after years of silence. What nonsense are you spouting? If anyone's behaving oddly, it's you, she countered sharply. Her next words, suggesting I was merely exploiting our parental relationship, erased any lingering fondness I had for her. Despite years of support and care, her accusation was unfounded. It seems they'll soon realize their mistake, but until then, they might as well savor this brief triumph, I thought, already plotting my response. I'm leaving this instant, I declared resolutely to my brother, his wife, and my mother. Their smug exchange followed. Sophia, you're finally vacating the house. Mother must be thrilled, Mark remarked. Indeed, I'm ecstatic to be moving in with Mark and Amanda. This marks a new beginning for me, my mother responded, her joy evident. Thank you, Mark. And Amanda, I'm looking forward to our life together, she added, gratitude in her voice. As they indulged in their light-hearted banter, I struggled to contain my amusement, knowing well that my calculated silence was essential for my plan's success. From then on, Mark and his wife's presence in my apartment became a constant, treating me as if I were invisible. To them, I seemed virtually non-existent, as if I had faded into the background entirely. Yet, this situation worked to my advantage, as their disregard allowed me to prepare for my departure without any interference. A week later, on the day of my move, Mark initiated the farewell. Today marks the day we go our separate ways, Sophia. We're assuming responsibility for Mom, so you're free to live your life unburdened. Thank you. Responding with composure, I acknowledged, I entrust Mom to your care. Mark appeared slightly perturbed by my serene acceptance. Then, approaching me, my mother expressed a somewhat backhanded wish. I do hope you find someone to marry, Sophia. It would be quite pitiful to stay single indefinitely. Society tends to judge harshly in such cases. At her insinuation, Mark and his wife couldn't help but laugh, to which I replied with equal calm, indeed, I've chosen to prioritize my own well-being from here on out. After all, I'm no longer obliged to cater to your needs, am I? Please, spare me the lectures and let me be. I had no intention of staying any longer than necessary. As the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the movers, I directed them towards my belongings and then to the household items in the living room, instructing, please ensure everything here, the television, refrigerator, microwave, cleaning robot, sofa, dining table, and bed is moved as well. Their astonishment was palpable, perfectly in sync, as they struggled to comprehend the unfolding events. My mother's protest was immediate. What are you doing? This must stop at once. Are you out of your mind, removing all items from the home? Mark, visibly infuriated, confronted me. Listen to Mom. How do you expect us to manage without any household essentials? You can't just take everything and leave. Their objections echoed before me, prompting a clarification on my part. Perhaps you're misunderstanding the situation. Everything in this apartment, including the apartment itself and all its contents, belongs to me. You seem to be under the mistaken impression that these were financed by Mom, attributing it to an inheritance from Dad. Mark, caught in his misconception, faced the reality that I had personally acquired all within the apartment and had been financially supporting our mother with a significant monthly contribution. You're eager to live with Mom, relying on a non-existent inheritance, aren't you? I'm set to receive Dad's inheritance, right? I questioned, bewildered by their assumptions. What are you implying? Mom has already expended Dad's entire inheritance quite some time ago, I informed them, noticing Mark's uneasy glance toward our mother, who looked away, her complexion ashen. Mom, could you clarify? You claim to have purchased all the appliances here, I pressed. I only said that to maintain appearances, she confessed. What does that mean? I probed further. Our decision to move in was based on the belief that Dad's inheritance was at our disposal. Without it, cohabitation seems pointless, Mark argued, his frustration evident. Hold on, are you suggesting that your offer to look after me was merely a facade, motivated by the expectation of an inheritance? I challenged. Discovering there was no inheritance left, Mark's anger surged, and my mother was visibly upset, realizing the supposed care and concern from Mark and his wife were nothing but a charade. It was a revelation that should have raised doubts much earlier, especially given their sudden interest in living together after a prolonged period of silence. If Mark had stayed in contact, he would have been aware of the financial situation sooner. As I regarded them with disdain, Mark's wife attempted to salvage the situation, suggesting, perhaps Sophia could reconsider and stay with us. Both my mother and Mark quickly concurred, indeed, Sophia, it's best if you remain with us. We truly need you, Mark added, their sudden shift in tone revealing their selfish motives. Dismissing their proposal outright, I retorted, what nonsense. Living with you is out of the question. I've chosen to focus on my own life from here on out, indifferent to whatever fate befalls you. They seemed to deflate at my words, their energy sapped, collapsing in defeat. Farewell, then. Take care as a family, I said, turning away and shutting the door behind me. In a fortnight, the apartment lease would expire, under my name, likely displacing them. However, that was no longer my concern. A week after settling into my new place, as anticipated, my mother reached out, pleading for assistance. Sophia, please, our living situation is unbearable. Won't you come back? But my resolve was firm. There's no chance of my return. Perhaps the couple you so depend on should fulfill their promises. It turned out they had abandoned their jobs, lured by the illusion of an inheritance, now desperate in their miscalculation. Still believing they could benefit from my father's inheritance, they've proven themselves to be truly despicable. I've lost all desire to assist them, given their sole focus on financial gain. You're all I have left, Sophia, my mother lamented. I'm currently occupied, mother. May I end this call? I requested, only to disconnect and block her number before she could respond. My willingness to aid my mother has vanished, particularly under these circumstances. It's been said that following the ordeal, my mother and Mark's household were forced out of the apartment, depleting Mark's finances to secure a modest living space. My mother remains unemployed, frequently clashing with Amanda, while Mark toils from morning to night to barely cover their expenses. Meanwhile, having distanced myself from these familial woes, my financial situation has improved, allowing me to focus on my personal well-being. After years of self-sacrifice, I'm committed to pursuing a life of personal fulfillment.